They won't see it. They won't see the war you wake up to every single day. Not the one outside. Not the noise of society, the deadlines, the critics, the chaos. No, I'm talking about the war within. The quietest, most brutal battlefield is the one between your ears. And make no mistake, it decides everything. Every great warrior has fought in this place long before they ever drew a blade. I did. When I was a boy, they feared my sword, but they never knew what I had to overcome just to step into the arena. They didn't see the nights I lay awake, haunted not by enemies, but by doubt. They didn't hear the whispers that told me I would fail, that I wasn't enough, that I would never become what I imagined. Because that voice doesn't shout. It murmurs, soft enough that you think it's your own thoughts, familiar enough that you start to believe it, persistent enough that it becomes your reality. This voice is not an accident. It is the oldest enemy of all, born from fear, fed by comfort, armed with excuses. And unless you defeat it, you'll lose to enemies that never even existed. So many people believe they are at war with the world. But the truth is simpler, more brutal. They are at war with themselves. You're not losing because life is hard. You're losing because you've surrendered without a fight. You give in to distractions. You abandon your focus. You listen to the voice that says, not today, not yet, maybe later. That voice is lying. There is no later. There is no perfect moment. There is no magic confidence waiting to arrive. There is only now. You want to change your life? Then stop waiting. Start fighting the war that no one else can fight for you. When I finally silenced that voice, everything else fell into place. I stopped needing permission. I stopped seeking approval. I stopped reacting to the world and started controlling it. Because power is not taken. It is built. Quietly. Daily. Alone. And it is built first in the mind. The battles no one sees are the ones that determine who you really are. The one who wakes up tired but still moves. The one who feels fear but still acts. The one who doubts but still sharpens the blade. That is a warrior. That is you if you choose to win. And in this video, I will show you how. Your first enemy was never a man. It was never a sword raised against you. It was never a loss in battle. Your first enemy, the one you must know, name, and defeat, lives within you. It's not dramatic. It's not loud. It's subtle. It's clever. And it has worn your face for years. This enemy knows your habits. It knows what excuses you listen to. It knows when to speak softly and when to yell. It doesn't fight you with violence. It fights you with comfort. It seduces you with delay. It flatters you with lies. You're tired. You deserve a break. You'll try harder tomorrow. But tomorrow never comes for the undisciplined. And I know this enemy well, because I bled beneath it. You see, before I ever stepped into a duel, I had already lost 1,000 battles, to hesitation, to anger, to fear, to weakness. I wasn't born a warrior. I was forged into one. And the fire that forged me was internal resistance. Do you understand what it means to be your own enemy? It means you sabotage your goals before anyone else can. It means you whisper doubt into your own ears. It means you live in chains, and the key was always in your hand. No rival can ever defeat you if your mind is unshakable. But if your mind is your enemy, even the smallest challenge will break you. There were mornings I could not rise, not because my body failed me, but because my mind refused to obey. And that's when I understood something. Discipline is not the sword. Discipline is the hand that wields the sword, even when it trembles. If you wish to follow my path, you must first draw your blade not on others, but on the part of yourself that resists growth. Cut away the softness. Cut away the hesitation. Cut away the part of you that keeps you small and afraid, because if you don't face that part, it will rule your life. You will find 1,000 enemies in your journey, but none of them will be as cunning, as quiet, as persistent, as the one that hides behind your eyes. This is why I trained in solitude, not to sharpen my blade, but to sharpen my will. And now I ask you, can you look in the mirror and say, I am not my enemy anymore? If not, then your war has only just begun. Control the mind, and the sword becomes weightless. Lose the mind, and even the sharpest blade becomes useless. I was never the fastest. I was never the strongest. But I was always the calmest. That is why I won. Not because I struck harder, but because I struck second, and still first. Let me explain. A blade in the hand means nothing if chaos reigns in the mind. Most warriors die not because they lack skill, but because they panic. They overthink. They react instead of respond. They let fear tighten their grip, and their precision collapses. I trained myself to do the opposite. Before every battle, I silenced my thoughts. Not to erase them, but to observe them. I let them come, and let them pass. Just like clouds before a storm. This was not meditation. It was war. Because your first move is never with the sword. It is with the breath. It is with the decision to remain still, just 1 second longer than your opponent. That second determines everything. Do you understand what it means to truly control your mind? It means you no longer obey the emotion that demands a response. It means you no longer react to insult, to pain, to provocation. It means you fight only when it is required, and never when it is convenient. When I entered combat, I didn't just read the opponent's blade. I read his eyes. I read his breath. I read his fear. And I did that not through magic, but through stillness. Stillness sharpens perception. Reaction dulls it. And most of all, stillness is not passive. It is power waiting. The modern world confuses movement with progress. People rush to speak, to act, to fight without knowing why. But power, real power, is measured in pause. The pause before the storm. The breath before the strike. The silence before the answer. When you master this pause, the world bends to you. I was never interested in victory alone. I was interested in domination of the mind. Because the man who cannot control his mind can be controlled by anything. But the one who controls it holds a weapon that can never be disarmed. So I ask you, can you sit still while the world tries to provoke you? Can you let insult pass through you like wind? Can you smile when your enemy shouts, because your blade is already ready? This is not theory. It is not philosophy. It is war. And the first weapon is silence. Victory does not begin with the sword. It begins the moment you do what must be done, without needing to feel like it. That is discipline. And discipline is the first true victory. Most men wait for motivation. They want to feel inspired before they move, before they fight, before they begin. But warriors like me, we move before the fire comes. And in doing so, we ignited ourselves. Discipline is what wakes you before the sun. Discipline is what sharpens your edge while others sleep. Discipline is what whispers, again, when you're already broken. And without it, nothing you desire will last. I did not train because it was convenient. I trained because I needed to be ready when it wasn't. Anyone can fight when the wind is behind them. But what about when your body aches? When your thoughts scream for rest? When no one is watching? That is when the true war begins. People believe that discipline is punishment. But they are wrong. Discipline is respect for your future self. It is not a prison. It is a path. And only those who stay on it will arrive where others cannot. When I was a child, I was unruly. I was reckless. I wanted the glory without the grind. But life crushed that version of me, and I let it. I buried the child who needed things to be easy. And I became the man who could walk through fire without blinking. Because when your habits are forged in discipline, your character becomes unshakable. Each morning that you rise before your weakness, you win. Each time you say no to distraction, you win. Each moment you honor your path when no one is watching, you win. Not against the world, but against yourself. And that is the only victory that truly matters. The man who conquers himself cannot be conquered by anything else. Understand this. Discipline is not about extremes. It is about consistency. You don't need to crush mountains. You need to carry one small stone every single day. The blade is not sharpened in one swing. It is sharpened through repetition, attention, and patience. Just like the soul. And when the moment of battle arrives, it's not the talented man who wins. It is the prepared one. The one who practiced when no one cared. The one who stayed sharp in the dark. The one who won, long before the fight began. So I ask you, will you let emotion command your life? Or will you wake tomorrow and obey the voice that leads to mastery? Because that is the voice of discipline. And it is the first voice of victory. Comfort is the enemy that wears a smile. It doesn't challenge you, it invites you. It doesn't attack you, it tempts you. It whispers, you've done enough. Rest. You deserve it. But comfort has killed more warriors than any sword ever forged. Understand this. No great life is built in comfort. And yet, every day, millions surrender their edge for nothing more than convenience. When I was young, I sought out discomfort. I trained barefoot on frozen ground. I ate little, slept less. Not because I enjoyed the pain, but because I feared what I would become without it. You see, comfort dulls the senses. It makes the sharp mind lazy. It makes the focused man distracted. It replaces discipline with delay, and honor with appetite. And by the time you realize what it's done, You've lost the fire that once defined you. In Musashi's time, and in yours, comfort is the first step toward decay. A man who bows to ease cannot rise in strength. But this war is quiet. No battle cries. No enemy soldiers. Just a warm bed, a skipped workout, a promise to start tomorrow. You tell yourself you're recharging, but you're actually retreating. Let me ask you, when was the last time you deliberately stepped into something hard, something uncomfortable, and chose to master it? If the answer is distant, you are losing ground. Comfort isn't neutral. It's a trap. And every time you choose it over discipline, you tighten your own chains. I defeated stronger men, not because my arms were more powerful, but because my will was unbreakable. And I forged that will by running toward discomfort when others ran from it. You want to live a life of strength? Then stop asking what feels good and start asking what builds you. You want to think like a warrior? Then reframe pain as proof. Reframe effort as identity. The blade is not sharpened by pillows. It is shaped against stone. And the spirit is no different. A weak man avoids resistance. A strong one embraces it because he knows resistance is where the growth lives. In this life, you can either choose discomfort on your own terms, or you will one day be forced to face it unprepared. That is why I trained when I didn't want to. Why I pushed when no one was watching. Why I made war against my own comfort every single day. Not because I enjoyed the suffering, but because I knew the man who walks into discomfort walks out with power. They praised me when I won. They whispered when I lost. But I learned early, neither their praise nor their doubts could define me. Because if you live for validation, you will die by criticism. Understand this. The need to be seen is the first chain on a warrior's mind. It begins with the desire to impress. Then it becomes the fear of disappointing. Then the prison of always performing. And slowly, you forget who you are. I have watched men destroy their greatness, not because they lacked strength, but because they were addicted to being liked. They became loud when they should have been silent. They became predictable when they should have been strategic. They became soft because they feared losing admiration. I refused that path. You cannot serve two masters, your purpose and their opinion. One must die. When I stood alone in the mountains, training for hours, for days, for years, no one clapped. No one watched. No one cared. And that was the point. Because mastery is built in silence. And if your motivation disappears when applause fades, then you were never truly committed. The strongest warriors I've known move without announcement. They don't need permission. They don't need validation. They don't seek attention. They seek alignment. Let me ask you, who would you be if no one ever praised you again? Would you still rise early? Still push forward? Still fight? Or have you become so entangled in admiration that your identity depends on it? This is the trap, because the world is inconsistent. One day, they cheer your name. The next, they spit on your path. And if their voices control your will, you are a puppet. But when you destroy the need for validation, you become untouchable. You don't need to argue. You don't need to prove. You simply move with precision and power. The truth is, validation is not a reward. It is a test to see if your ego will choose comfort or if your spirit will stay disciplined in the dark. I did not train to be praised. I trained so that when the moment came, I did not flinch. Let the world misunderstand you. Let them misjudge your silence. Because when the war begins, the loudest man dies first. So kill the craving to be liked and build the resolve to be real. That is the warrior's path. And on that path, the only approval that matters is your own. You think the enemy is out there, in the battlefield, in the chaos, in the eyes of your opponent. But the deadliest blade you'll ever face is the one you hold to your own throat. Its name is doubt, and it does not swing with power. It slices with hesitation. You don't lose because you are weak. You lose because you pause. Because in the instant when you could have moved, you questioned yourself. That's all it takes. A moment of what if I fail? A breath of what if I'm not enough? A flicker of maybe I should wait. And in that moment, you are already defeated. I have seen men tremble not before the strike, but before their own decisions. They trained harder than anyone. They were strong, skilled, ready. But their minds were not. They wanted guarantees. They wanted permission. They wanted reassurance. And when none came, they crumbled. But let me tell you something. Warriors do not wait for clarity. They create it. Doubt is a slow poison. You sip it every time you delay. Every time you replay the worst outcome. Every time you compare your path to someone else's. And the more you sip, the more you paralyze your will. Do you think I stepped into duels knowing I would win? No. I stepped in knowing that I would act, no matter what, because action kills doubt, and hesitation feeds it. There were days I questioned my path, days I wondered if I was becoming too hardened, too distant, too alone. But I remembered this truth. The blade you aim at yourself always cuts the deepest, and I refused to bleed for nothing. So I silenced the doubt, not by ignoring it, but by outmoving it. That is the secret. You don't need to feel certain. You need to move despite uncertainty. That is what separates the warrior from the warrior. Let them call you reckless. Let them call you obsessed. Let them say you've changed. Because what they don't understand is this. You've disarmed your greatest enemy, the voice that said you couldn't. And when that voice dies, you finally begin to live. So lower the blade, stand tall, and act. Because doubt is a liar, and your mind was built for more than fear. Emotion is not weakness, until it drives your actions. Then it becomes your enemy. I watched warriors throw away perfect plans, because they were insulted, because they were afraid, because they felt slighted, embarrassed, rushed. And the moment they let emotion steer the sword, they lost the battle before it began. Strategy is precision. It is timing. It is seeing 5 moves ahead. Emotion is noise. It clouds the path. It pulls your attention from what matters to what hurts. And in war, distraction is death. When I walked into a duel, I never hated my opponent. I never allowed anger to enter the arena. Because anger makes your movements wide. Fear makes your reactions fast, but foolish. Ego makes you chase a strike when you should wait. I defeated men more talented than me. Because I was colder. Not colder in the heart, but in the mind. I knew what I wanted, and I moved toward it like ice carving stone. You must learn the same. Because today's world rewards outrage. It monetizes overreaction. It teaches you that your feelings must dictate your choices. But warriors, they feel everything and act on nothing. Not until the time is right. This is not suppression. This is discipline. You must learn to observe your emotion like a storm on the horizon. It's there. It's strong. But it does not change your direction. Think of how many decisions you've made in anger, in desperation, in the heat of hurt, and how many of those decisions turned into regret. Now imagine if, in those moments, you paused, took a breath, held the blade, waited. That is the space where power lives. And the one who masters that space, masters life. So when rage comes, do not strike. When fear rises, do not run. When pride burns, do not prove. Wait. And when the moment is yours, move with clarity. Because emotion is a wave, but strategy is the tide, and it always wins. You believe the war is over, because no one is swinging a sword at you. But the war never ends. It just becomes quieter, more invisible. It hides behind your morning alarm. It waits in your cravings. It sits in silence when you're alone with your thoughts. The enemy now wears no armor. It wears comfort. It wears excuses. It wears your own name. Each day you rise, you're already in a fight. But because no one is watching, you think it doesn't count. That's where you're wrong. The battles no one sees define everything. Will you choose discipline over delay? Will you do what needs to be done when no one is clapping? Will you keep your promises to yourself when quitting would be easier? This is the unseen war. And every man is at war with something. Some fight fear. Some fight laziness. Some fight addiction, weakness, distraction, self-doubt. And most lose, not because they're incapable, but because they think small battles don't matter. They think skipping one workout, one promise, one discipline won't cost them. But Musashi would say, if you abandon the way in one thing, you abandon the way in all things. Understand this. Every day is a test. Every small decision, a sword stroke. Every breath, a chance to remain sharp or soften. You do not need a battlefield to become a warrior. You need a mirror. You need awareness. You need to see the war that no one else sees, and still choose to win it. When I trained alone, there were no cheers. When I pushed myself past exhaustion, there were no medals. But I knew I was becoming something unbreakable, because the man who wins the quiet war will never lose the loud one. So tomorrow when you wake, and the voice says just 5 more minutes, strike first, win early, and remind yourself, the real war was never out there. It was always here. The world will try to shake you. It will tempt you, distract you, provoke you. It will test every weakness, exploit every doubt, and magnify every flaw. But none of it matters, if you have already won where it counts most. Inside, The battle within is the only one that matters. Because once you have mastered that war, nothing outside can touch you. When I stood on the battlefield, sword in hand, heart steady, I was not fighting the man before me. I was fighting the version of myself that once hesitated, the boy who feared failure, the apprentice who sought applause, the doubter who wanted guarantees. And I buried him with every disciplined breath I took. That is how I commanded the world. Not with muscle, not with noise, but with absolute control over my own mind. The warrior who has conquered his impulses cannot be seduced by comfort. The warrior who has silenced his doubt cannot be defeated by fear. The warrior who has broken the chains of approval walks with a presence that needs no introduction. This world bends to those who do not bend to it. So I ask you now, have you won that war? Have you faced your fears, disciplined your weaknesses, burned your excuses, and forged your edge? Because until you do, everything else is an illusion. Your goals, your strength, your vision, they are all temporary, unless your foundation is forged from within. People want the world to obey them, but they've never mastered themselves. They want respect, but they still betray their own promises. They want power, but they panic under pressure. You don't need more followers. You need more discipline. You don't need more attention. You need more silence. Because the moment you stop needing the world is the moment it starts chasing you. This is the final truth I leave you with. Win the battle within, and you will command the world without. Not with force, not with fame, but with the quiet strength of someone who does not need to fight, because he already won.